Hello everyone! Have you ever wanted to learn how to read music notation? In this video, we're going to learn the basics of rhythm. Hi, I'm Vicky from Blackheath Music Academy, and today we're going to look at a few very basic features of rhythm. So, to begin with, I'm going to show you a few examples of music notation, starting from a very simple one to a medium difficulty one to a very hard one. In the first example, we can observe row, row, row your boat. So we see that this is music notation for piano. We see that the melodic part of row, row, row your boat is on the higher part of the stave, we call that the stave, and then on the lower part of the stave we see the left hand chord, so that will sound like this. Now to compare with, let's have a look at this piece by Chopin, a very well-known romantic composer. This is how it sounds. Now, a very tricky one would be a score for orchestra. So this one here is by Beethoven, the Fifth Symphony. You all know this piece. Now, in this representation of the Fifth Symphony, we could see the different parts of the orchestra and how much more complicated could notation look like. The basic elements of rhythm are what we're going to look at today, as I mentioned. So in the most general sense, rhythm comes from the Greek rhythmos, deriving from ray, or meaning to flow in English. And rhythm is an ordered alternation of contrasting elements. So the most important features of rhythm are the beat, the tempo, the duration, and the time. The beat in music is the unit division of musical time. Just as one is aware of the body's steady pulse or heartbeat, so in composing, performing, or listening to music, one is aware of a periodic succession of beats. So, a very important part of rhythm, in the most general sense, is also the tempo, or translated from Italian, time. We'll have many Italian words we'll have to look at. So one very important is tempo, meaning time. So what is the tempo?
Oh, my fearing whiskies! I'm late!
The speed of the beat is called the tempo. A funeral march, for instance, would be said to be in a slow tempo. Expressions like slow tempo or quick tempo are somehow vague, but composers can indicate exactly the speed they want. To do this, they use the device called a metronome. The metronome makes a steady beat or a ticking sound like a clock, except that it can be adjusted to tick at any speed you wish. So, besides beat and tempo, we also need a duration of each sound. So the duration of each sound will actually give the music a rhythmic structure, which then will be placed in time. So let's have a look at a few representations of these last ones. Translating rhythm in symbols. So if we listen to soldiers marching in a band, for example, the most used rhythmic sign, called the crotchet note, will be our marching of the soldiers. And this is how it will look like. So if you're marching or listening to marching bands, you will hear the marching of the soldiers. And in music, you will see left, right, or these four symbols here, which have a note head and a stem. We call the line above the note head the stem. So that will be our crotchet note, which translates into one beat or one movement in this case. If a drum struck a beat only on each left foot step, then we'll need a different sign, or as we call it in music, a minim note. And that will look like this. So the note head now is white, as you can see, and the stem above is the same. But that difference will mean that the higher note, the big drum, will last for longer, or for 2 beats, as we can see in the lower crotchet section, which is 2 beats. Now, if we add to that a small drum at the back, and that small drum goes faster than our marching, that will be our quaver note. And that quaver note will actually have a tail now, as you can see. So each crotchet note or our marching will have 2 strokes on the small drum or 2 quaver notes, and it will look like here. So the design of a note shows its value or the duration and how long does it last for, as we just saw in the previous examples. Let's have a look at different types of notes or different rhythmic representations. So this will be our semi-brief note, which will last for 4 counts, or 1, 2, 3, 4. The next one is the minim that we saw before, so it will be 1, 2, 2 counts. And the crotchet note, the marching of the soldiers from before, so 1, 1, 1, 1. There are also other types of notes to match our speed in music, right? So if we want to have faster notes in music, we'll use the quaver as a single one with the tail, or beamed as here 2 quavers. And that will sound like this: 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and I'm adding the end to match my second quaver for 1 beat. The semi-quaver, which is even faster than the quaver, and we usually have 4 semi-quavers in 1 crotchet note, and that will sound like this. How do they relate to each other? Well, in this pyramid, we can observe the higher one, the semi-brief note, which is 4 counts, and then the lower ones, the lower notes, are actually getting faster and faster. So if you look at the minim note, the white note, that will be 2 minims for 1 semi-brief. And then we have 4 crotchet notes for 1 semi-brief, for example. We have 8 quavers for 1 semi-brief and 16 semi-quavers for 1 semi-brief, and so and so. So how do we organize all these rhythms in notation? We need a time signature, which tells us what kind and how many of those will go into a single bar. And based on that, we could have many bars divided by our bar lines. And then at the end, we'll have a double bar line to separate all this and organize them. Now, these fractions, or the time signatures, contain 2 numbers. The top one showing the number of beats in a single bar, so in this case it will be 4. And then the lower number of the fraction, what kind of beats we have in a bar. So in this case we have crotchet notes or 1/4 note. Now this might change as we go and progress ahead with music notation. So we'll have different examples and we'll analyze them together. So different time signatures will have different meanings, and different numbers on the top will usually tell us how many notes we have in a single bar, and the lower number will tell us what kind of notes we have in a single bar. So what if we want to play a piece in 3, for example, to have 3 beats in a bar? Well, we'll have to add to it a dot. A dot in music adds half of the value of the note that you're using or reading. So for example, this minim note with the dot will be 3 counts, the crotchet with the dot will be 1.5 count, and then the quaver with the dot will be a quaver with 1/16th note or a semiquaver. Now have a look at the notes next to the dotted notes, the ones with the curved line. That in music is called a tie, and it has the same meaning as with the dotted notes. So the minim with a tie and a crotchet will be 3 counts in total, meaning that you have to hold it through, and then the crotchet tied to a quaver will be 1.5, and so and so. So what if we place this tie in notation or in a music example? The first one does not have a tie, but if we have a look at it, we need 4 counts in each bar, meaning that the last bar looks too long. So if we want to have 3 bars in total in this example, we'll have to split that minim note in the second bar in half. But let's say in music this is illegal, splitting a note in half, so we'll use the tie. As you can see in the next example, the tie will connect through the bar. That way you can press that note and hold it through and it doesn't look weird. So in music we also have silence. So how do we represent silence in music? With the same structure that we used before for rhythmic signs. So let's have a look together at all or some of the most important rests out there. So in this example, we can see how the rests, the symbols for the rests, will match the meaning of the notes we just learned together. They look different and we need time to memorize them, but once you memorize them, then it's pretty much all straightforward and we can start reading rhythms and perform rhythmic charts, etc. Rests can be dotted too. So if you remember the dotted notes we just saw, these are the rests that match the meaning of those dotted notes from before. So a few music examples that I could show you are rhythm in 2/4, time signature, and a 3/4. So what is the difference in terms of musical style between these two rhythms? If you match these rhythms to a melody, the 2/4 usually will give you a march, a sense of a march or a very steady piece, and then the 3/4 could match a waltz. So if you have a listen at these two, the march and the waltz, let's have a listen on how these different rhythms will sound when we perform them. So for the first one, I'm going to say ta ta for the crotchet notes and ti ti for the quaver notes. And I'm going to clap the beat. Ta 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 ti 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 ta. So did you see how my steady clapping was measuring the pulse or the beat of the music, and then I was vocally reproducing the notes with the different sounds matching the rhythmic structure? Try this on your own, see how it works. Now I'm going to try and show you the next one. Da 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 ti 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 da ti ti da. This one was a little bit more challenging. So if you want to try these music examples on your own, it will be a great way of starting to practice music notation or rhythmic notation in this case. For more on how to read music notation, watch our next video.